Can I make a game in 30 days? This is what I asked myself 30 days ago when I had literally no ideas for YouTube. I always wanted to try game dev and this seemed like a good opportunity, so I just jumped on it. The first thing I did was to search where do I start to make a video game. I stumbled across this Reddit post that was asking the same thing, and upon going into the comments, this is what I found. The top comment said that I should start by choosing an engine, then find a guide on programming and how to use that same engine, starting with a small project, and to finally post to itch.io. For an engine, I chose Godot as I heard great things about it, and for a comprehensive guide, I just went to YouTube. I kept looking through the same Reddit post and found a comment that reinforced the idea that you should not start by making your big project first. So your first ever game should be as simple as Flappy Bird. So that's what I decided to do. Upon searching around on YouTube, I stumbled across this video by Brackies that explains how to make a game in the Godot engine as a beginner. I followed the tutorial and after a couple of hours, I already knew a little bit of how to mess around with Godot. But I was still very much lacking in the coding part, so I also watched, on the second day, the video that Brackies made on coding in GDScript, the programming language that Godot uses. After following these two videos, I was still not very comfortable with game dev, but I still decided to just YOLO it and started working on a kind of Flappy Bird. I would do whatever I knew how to do, being sure to go back and review stuff that I didn't fully understand, and searching on the internet for whatever I didn't know how to do yet. This went on for the following 2 weeks. During this learning phase, I got Aspiprite to make pixel art for the game. I watched this really good video on animation by Pixel Overload.
It's so easy to get lost trying to create animations from a static sprite by shifting pieces around and playing with individual pixels, but this often results in an awkward animation. Animation isn't about the lighting or the character. Animation is about movement. We need to separate the aesthetic of the static image from its movement, and focus only on that movement. Once we have the really nice foundation of good movement, we can begin to put the skin back on the character.
And this one on Run Cycles by Alan Becker. I then proceeded to make this animation, and then when it came to doing actual art, I was hitting a big wall. Such that I had to ask my friend to help me with it. He enjoys art a lot, but has been stuck without doing art for a very long time. So I thought that he would like to try something new, with the intent of reigniting his passion for the arts. And boy, did I profit in the process. I didn't even have to pay him. Então, já acabaste o sprite do personagem?
Estou quase a acabar. Podes-me devolver a minha família.
Friends and their demands, am I right? You give them something to reignite their passion and they come with demands and demands. Anyways, when he did finish the character sprite, this is what he came up with. A cyborg samurai. I really liked the design, so I just gave him his family back. At this point, the game doesn't look too good, but it is, to some degree, Flappy Bird, if you could move horizontally and there were bullets being shot at you. These bullets are also parryable, since I, for some reason, have an obsession with parrying in video games. Parrying a bullet will give you back a bit of stamina that you can use on a jump or a dash to get back to safety. A very rudimentary game for sure, but a decent start for the first 2 weeks of the challenge. You might notice, however, that I'm not yet using the sprite that my friend made me, and there's a good reason for it. The game's code was trash. It was very hard to read and incredibly unorganized. Not only that, but the whole project was really messy due to me not knowing how to play around with Godot too well yet. So I decided to just start everything from scratch. It was at this point that I also began streaming my process over on Twitch. Do I need to create a new fucking animation? Yes, I do. Something I found that I really like is that people on this Twitch category are really wholesome and supportive. Literally the first day that I was there, I got raided by another creator in the space who introduced a couple really cool people to my channel. Right from the get-go, I got a bunch of support from these people, helping me learn the finer details of GDScript and Godot. A couple of them even continue to come back to see my progress on the game. Really cool. A tip that everyone gives newbies is to not think too big. Keep a smaller scope so you don't topple over too many ideas or make the game overcomplicated. So, with that in mind, I decided to keep my scope small by creating a small Metroidvania-like map with a simple boss in the end. Well, this is what I ended up with. Notice how there's no Metroidvania-like map and no boss. I went on to quickly find out that even that was too big of a scope, mostly due to my inexperience in game development, but also because of the short development time, which at this point was effectively 2 weeks. This is Samurai Mage, a wave-based roguelike where you try to survive the most amount of waves possible. Every wave comes with an increased number of enemies, and each enemy has a little buff to some of their stats, depending on which wave the game is at. Between each wave, there's also a little shop where you can choose one of 3 upgrades, each of them randomly picked from the 4 available. The player was definitely where I spent most of my time working, as, to me, controls and/or actions that feel good are very important, so I really wanted to nail down how fun the character felt to play and control. The character has the following features: a sword with a 3-hit combo and a special attack, a jump, a dash, a parry, and gun. The sword has a nanometer mechanic that would be shamelessly stolen by Monster Hunter 5 years prior. This nanometer fills up with you dealing melee damage, and the more levels you have, the more damage your sword deals. The sword also has a special sheath attack that can be triggered after the second attack in the combo, something that would be shamelessly stolen by Monster Hunter 5 years prior. When you are in this sheath state, your character starts charging, and upon attacking again, your character dashes forward, dealing a large amount of damage. This attack also scales a lot more with your nano level than a normal attack, but at the cost of 1 nano level, something that would be shamelessly stolen by Monster Hunter 5 years prior. I wanted to give the character as much movement as it was reasonable to, and avoided restricting movement as much as possible. So much so that my original idea was to actually just let you dash as many times as you could press the button, but I had to opt for a stamina bar instead, as that was too OP. However, jumps are still infinite. I had this mindset because I find the feeling of not being restricted by how much movement you are allowed to do to be very freeing and fun. Moving on to the enemies, there are 3, with a secret 4th one. The first enemy is this melee robot. He is a bit of a tank with very high damage. He doesn't have a lot of mobility though, and his attack is very slow and requires a wind-up. His code works in a pretty cool way in my opinion. He has a total of 3 actions that he can take, and decides which one he chooses depending on the player's distance on the Y and X axis. Attack, step, and idle. To me this seemed like a simple and effective way of making a robotic feeling enemy, and with my little experience, I was kinda proud of it. Next up is the Mage. The Mage is a ranged enemy. He tries to keep a minimal and maximum distance from you and shoots you with these arcane bullets that track you slightly. Although the bullets are parryable, they still do a lot of damage and are hard to see with all the clutter from the other enemies walking around. Because of this, and the fact that the robots are fairly easy to avoid, a normal strategy, and one that normally works, is to prioritize them by taking them out first, removing their unpredictability. The last enemy is a little drone that flies around. It keeps its distance from you while still following you around, and once it's in range, it will start spinning and dash towards you, dealing a significant amount of damage upon impact. This drone was made to be very annoying, due to his code making it so he actively avoids lining up with you horizontally to make it harder to kill. I thought this was overtuning him though, which made him too annoying and therefore unfun, so I made it so you can avoid taking damage by hitting him with a melee attack, knocking him away from you. Lastly, there was this 4th enemy that sadly did not ever leave the development stage due to the lack of time. I even had a really cool name for him, Dynamonkey. Dynamonkey was supposed to be a monkey that throws dynamites at you. These dynamites would also knock you back like an explosive jump. On the release date, I held a small competition with a very prestigious reward of VIP on the channel for whoever completed Wave 16 first. After just 40 minutes, that challenge was already completed by Tuga. The legend went on to survive until Wave 51, and the only reason why he didn't go further is because he just gave up. I have always been very interested in game development, that being the design aspects, very clever ways to achieve certain functionalities, and strange changes that make certain mechanics way more fun. I decided to take on the challenge of, in 30 days, have a functional game that's also at least okay in how fun it is. What ended up happening is that I discovered something that I really like doing and will probably keep doing for the foreseeable future. So expect content related to this, like devlogs and such. I'm going to be streaming the development of whatever game I'm working on and posting somewhat frequent videos to YouTube, aiming for weekly uploads. The next game that I will be developing will be a 2D PvP shooter that's going to be very much inspired on games like Quake and TF2. So basically a 2D PvP movement shooter. If you like the sound of that, you can come hang out over on Twitch while I develop the game. Indie game development is as accessible as ever, and I hope this video proves that. There are an absurd amount of resources from which you can learn for free on the internet. Not only that, but there's also very good software that you can use for game development that's completely free. If I can create a game in 30 days with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, so can you. Go make games, and thanks for watching. Something that would be shamelessly stolen by Monster Hunter 5 years prior.